welcome to our annual Interfaith Dialogue. I'm Joanna Zhang. On behalf of Tzu-Chi Foundation, we're delighted to bring you this event in observance of World Interfaith Harmony Week. World Interfaith Harmony Week was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in 2010, recognizing the imperative needs for dialogue among different faiths and religions in enhancing mutual understanding, harmony, and cooperation among people. It provides a platform when all interfaith groups and other groups of goodwill can show the world what powerful movements they are. Today, we are honored to have 5 leaders from diverse religious groups to join us, and we're really looking forward to hearing from them in a moment as they share their wisdom on the topic of interfaith approaches for cultivating wellness amidst COVID-19. As this session is a dialogue and will take place in multiple rounds of conversation, I encourage you to ask your questions to our panelists by posting them in the chat. And we have reserved near the end of the dialogue some time for audience Q&A. And for those of us who are watching the recordings, please feel free to write any follow-up questions to our panelists to our email address, which can be found in our description under this video. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, everybody. And first, I would like to share with you a short video about Tzu-Chi Foundation and the work that volunteers have been doing in the past year. And our founder, Master Chen Yan, a spiritual and religious leader, guides over 10 million volunteers worldwide, spanning 5 continents, delivering humanitarian aids and spiritual care to people in need around the globe. Let's watch now Tzu-Chi volunteers translate love into action, cultivating wellness for all, and work to leave no one behind.
Welcome to Tzu-Chi USA Community Vaccination Event.
The reason I'm getting the shot is because I'm caring for my folks right now. It's almost not about me, it's about them.
We try to encourage more people to come.
We work with the indigenous communities.
We're going to the fields to give information about vaccine. Tenemos un evento gratis si le gustaría obtener la vacuna.
Me fueron a invitar para venir a ponerme la vacuna.
We have enough vaccinators. Many folks are very anxious. No identification, okay?
It's a pleasure to serve the community.
You're very friendly, I smile all the time.
Thank you.
This is the date to come back for the second.
A lot of migrant workers here don't have healthcare insurance, so we don't charge them anything.
We'll continue to come back until the people don't need us anymore.
Our charity programs have provided food, free vision care, and supplies for students. We join together, calling for support in our efforts to amplify health and dream big, do good in education. We also spread the wisdom of Buddhism to inspire, guide, and uplift.
The water just came rushing through.
The flood soaked all the room.
Thank y'all. Gave us some good stuff that we need.
We all have the same love in our hearts.
They distribute us like $1,000.
我非常感谢慈济这个大家庭，感谢。
This is the biggest event ever.
我
觉得在慈济的话，对我们的帮助就像是黑暗中的烛火。
Kit médical là. Donc côté que yo gen gants, yo gen cache-nez, même si c'est vrai, nous vivons comme si le coronavirus n'est pas trop présent.
Moun yo besoin manger parce que ville que bon. Da men pour bon Dieu t'a pas courage à force pour te retourner pour te manger pour moun yo toujours.
我们来试做那个热食供应的 program， 来教他们怎样做这个煮热食。
Bon, en fait, moi, t'as remédié, merci. Et puis juste, on voit ça en café pour haïtien.
We were able to bypass the gate.
Le faisons avec beaucoup de cœur, beaucoup de respect et de gratitude pour ma sœur Chénienne.
Oui, ça, nous bien contents. Mais le grand-père nous fait pour nous. Merci. Merci.
Merci, Tzu-Chi! Merci, Tzu-Chi!
It's about time we see Master's teaching has been heard.
Plant-based meat, we just have to make it available.
The civil society and the young people, they are very, very eager to see some change happening.
When I heard what your organization was going to do, I am humbled to realize what you're bringing to our community.
Tzu-Chi has been donating funds to go forward, a very gracious gift and very necessary.
It's love. It's always with love.
We are all in this together, and through difficult times, we have strived to bring relief to those in need. It's love. It's always love. I would like to now welcome the Executive Director of Tzu-Chi Center for Compassion Relief, Katie Zhao, to share some opening remarks with us as we kick off this dialogue. Hello, Katie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Joanna. Hello, I'm Katie Zhao, Director at the Tzu-Chi Center. Very grateful today to our esteemed religious leaders for joining us in this interfaith dialogue. As we explore the critical lens of wellness in the context of rebuilding our lives and communities from the impacts of COVID-19. This past year has been a difficult one as the pandemic lingers on. But Tzu-Chi Center has continuously worked to serve the community, bringing forth critical reflections from our various partners on insights and actions that can bring a sense of hope in these challenging times. I'm looking forward to this conversation and the unique wisdom you each bring from your various faith traditions. Tzu-Chi Center for Compassionate Relief is delighted to be hosting this dialogue. And on behalf of our team, I wish to extend the warmest welcome to both our panelists and participating audience. Whether you are joining us live or after the fact, we are grateful to have you and hope you are able to leave this conversation with new insights into how wellness can be incorporated into your own life and your faith. Thank you and have a good session.
Thank you so much, Katie, for your opening remarks. Now, without further ado, please allow me to introduce to you our honorable guests. So first we have Venerable Yo-Won. Venerable Yo-Won is the Deputy Abbess of the International Buddhist Progress Society Temple in New York, and she serves as the Director of UN Affairs of the Buddha's Light International Association. Welcome, Venerable Yo-Won. Thank you so much for being here. And then we have Dr. Kenneth Liao. Dr. Liao is the Deputy Executive Director of Tzu-Chi Foundation Northeast Region. He is the Chair of Medical Development, and he also serves as a representative of the foundation to the United Nations. Welcome, Dr. Liao.
Thank you.
Then I'd like to introduce to you Rabbi Robert Wiedem. Rabbi Wiedem is a senior rabbi from Temple Emanuel of Great Neck. He received his Doctor of Hebrew Letters degree from Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion. Welcome, Rabbi. Then let me introduce to you Father Brian McWeeny. Father Brian is from the Office of Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs of the Archdiocese of New York. He received his doctorate in minister from Princeton Theological Seminary. Welcome, Father Brian. Finally, we have Reverend Scott Stearman. Reverend Stearman directs the International Advocacy Baptist Collaborative, and he is also the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for the Parliament of World Religions. Welcome, Reverend Stearman. So welcome all our distinguished guests as we explore how emerge from the pandemic and rebuild. We offer this dialogue in the context of wellness. So now we move on to our open dialogue, and I have prepared some questions for you, and we'd like to hear your wisdom, your thinking for all of those questions. And then we will receive some questions from the audience, and we will try to address as many questions from the audience as possible. So for our first dialogue question, I'm very curious to hear from your thoughts on what does it mean to you by saying to cultivate wellness in a world filled with so much suffering. So I'd like to first invite Venerable Yo-Won to share.
Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. And then I met my old friends, Father Brian, and then also Freeman, and then also some new friends. And very nice meeting you, Rabbi, and then Mr. Scott. And from the, I think this is today, the interfaith, and then the base. So I think I just, need to represent in the view from the Buddhism. So the first things we were talking about is, we were thinking about, it's like, what is the, let me see, let me move my slides. In the Buddhism, we're talking about, about the sufferings. It's a special terms. We say it's dukkha. And also it has so many different kind of dukkha. And so from the beginning, we've been born, and then we're getting old age, and then the sickness, of course, and the death. It's definitely, there's the basic four different kind of suffering. We call it dukkha. And then, of course, there's all other things too. And then, for example, being apart with loved ones, and then, or being together with someone you not really like it. And then also when you didn't get your stuff, and then you look at the face, that's also sufferings. And of course, there's a kind of suffering as everyone, every human beings, you cannot avoid. That's the flourishing the 5 skandhas from our eyes, your nose, your taste, your smell, and all these feelings. So from all those sufferings, no one wants to be, in this kind of condition at all times. This is why in Buddha wants to get enlightenment, and then want to find out what's the way we can, away from all those sufferings, from all those dukkha. So that's why the being well is very important. And then so the wellness is not just about our physically. So I can see the doctor is here, Dr. Liao is here. You should be agree, you know, if your patient has very good mental health, you know, very, you know, strong, you know, the good strength from, you know, their willingness want to get well. And then it would be easy for you to help them to get well sooner, right? So, right, doctor? Yes, I think that this is for sure. So that's why, you know, how can we, especially during this pandemic, of course, the pandemic is directly striking out everyone about, you know, physical condition. Then, however, there is a lot of people still, for example, our first responders, you know, why they can still holding there. Of course, some of them get infected, but some of them still very working, you know, strongly and then supporting and helping everyone. It's because the mental, you know, the mental power. So this is how, you know, the mental wellness is, I from my point of view, and then especially from the Buddhism, it's very focused in our mental part, and then stay well. And then if we stay the mental health, and then that is health. And so for how can we stay, you know, stable and then straining out our stay on our mental health. So I think for a lot of doctors, and then everyone will be agree, there's several ways we can, you know, stay in our mental health and then maintain the social connections, staying active, and then managing the stress. This is a kind of like also the meaning purpose, meaning, and everyone, I just gave out a couple prayers, and then we were talking about for everyone, and then every, you know, the human beings, the living beings, we all need the purpose and meaning in it for this life. So this is like what we need to get in. Of course, then, you know, the brain healthy diet and quality sleep, that's basic for everybody. So that's how we, from the congregation I am with, no matter it's in the, of course, in our Buddhist community, and then also our devotees community, is that our structure and then the ways we're doing is very similar as a Tzu-Chi. So the first thing is when this pandemic starts, and what we are doing is we are trying to helping everyone stay healthy, for, of course, the physically part first. So we've been working on to supporting and then distributing all the supplies in the PPEs we can from all over the world. No matter it's from different country to China from the beginning, or later on from China, and then, or from all different places from Malaysia, support India, and everywhere. So all those stay in action, and then they have a purpose, and then they have meaning, and that keeps make our every members in our congregation, they active. They have purpose, and then they are all stay connected with the community, with everyone. They are maintaining their mental health really well, and then even they have the strength more than they think, and then they can support in outside our own congregation, and then throughout to the community. So I think this is all the, you know, from no matter Tzu-Chi or Blia, that's what we all were doing for the past 2 years. Of course, you know, we need to bring on more different goals too. And the climate change, and then the SDG from the UN, say all we can focus on. That's how we all doing, because that brings the meaning, the purpose and meaning to our lives. So our members, and then they are, you can see the face, you can see there's no fears, and then they stay healthy, and then that's how you know, being well, and then through this, you know, COVID. And then not just that, And then self-cultivation is also very important too. So it's not just stay and work with the community and then supporting community. We have a lot of activities and then to strongly and then assist their own personally cultivations. So we've been working together, and then I'm just showing some local activities where we're doing. This is we put since the pandemic, and then we put a lot of things online because the distance, we have to stay with the proper social distance. But however, the internet brought us has no distance. So we can connect with each other through the internet, and then through their, give them good nutrition for their mind. And then this is a cooking program. You won't believe. And then this is what we've been doing in our local New York temple. And then it's not just cooking. We brought, some good, we call the Dharma, we call the wisdom, we call, this can help them. And then being nicely, and then to good conversations, stay well with families, because during the pandemic, a lot of things changed. Their relationship, including the family members' relationships, and then co-workers, and then working environments, everything. People has to facing the new relationships and the new phenomena from this whole community, including the hate crimes and racism. And then so Dr. Henry Lee and gave us, all the good suggestions. And also we stay still active, and then to bring the world together, and then showing our, let the world know what we have been doing. It's just like Tzu-Chi is trying to tell everyone what Tzu-Chi is doing in the world, same as us. It's not just that. From the, as when I mentioned, the cultivation, self-cultivation in the religious part too. And so we doing this throughout the world, and then bring everyone together. And then also this kind of sutra copying, this is just one of the way we're practicing. And then the technology brings us, together. That's very important. Sometimes they create a difficulty to you, but sometimes they bring you a lot of convenience. Just like right now, Father, you don't have to travel, and me too. But we can see each other almost every month, right? So to manage stress, that's how we do all those cultivations, and then practicing and managing our stress. And then we can stay active, and then because the organizations brought us connected with the social connections together. And of course, in everything we were doing, and then we bring our members together, and then with our community together, that created all the meaningful and purpose to our life. So we continue in doing this. And then, so this is how the future plans, we would do the veggie runs, and then, bring up the physical health too, physical wellness too. And then that brings the purpose, what to do. And then stay healthy, stay vegetarian diets. And then that also, it's the climate, slow down the climate change, the best action we can do. So that's what, look at this picture. In this picture, probably it's not really totally the 12,000 people, and then in the picture all from all over the world. And then when we have the general members meeting, and then, but you can see, and that this is how technology and then brought us together, and from all over the world. And then because we have the same goals and same purpose. We want to benefit all other mankind, and then that's stay us, together. And this is because that was 2020, this is 2022, 2021. And then this is from our local community, our local chapters on Blia. And then this is going to be this year. And then we will host this, our members meeting again in the North America. And this is I won't take us too much time, but this is actually just we were not just that seriously all in the cultivation. We also have some relaxing time. So this is like a music contest. The song we have the Human World Song Contest, and then this is just locally North America, and then we have people, because during the pandemic, everyone think about it. They think they cannot going out, they cannot doing their usually do, and then so that probably they will consider that's the suffering, that's dukkha. But music, and then also it's a part of the way to relax your, managing your stress, relax your stress. So that's how we are doing this. And then the programs, you can see the people, and then they make them happy. So from the first questions, and then I think when we do have the faith, and then that's the strength to free us from fear, and then encourage everyone who can coexist together. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Venerable Yowan. That's a really in-depth sharing. And indeed, I agree that cultivating wellness is not just about maintaining physical health, but also about keeping emotional wellness, strengthening mental power as well. And then, as you have mentioned, a lot of challenges in the current world, I believe everyone would agree as well, such as social distancing and haterisms in the society currently. And finally, I think it's great that we have learned from you through what volunteers are doing, some ways of cultivating wellness could be perhaps through engaging and helping others, and also building communities, and that helps us ourselves as well to cultivate our own wellness. So thank you so much for the sharing, and also for the great work that you and the volunteers from Buddha's Light International Association is doing to help people in need. Thank you so much. And what about Reverend Stearman? What do you think about cultivating wellness in a world filled with so much suffering? What does it mean to you?
Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate this opportunity to share briefly with you about this very, very vital topic today. I do think, in fact, we are suffering from twin pandemics, obviously the virus that we talk about all the time, but also the other pandemic of extreme isolation, loneliness has come about through a variety of side effects of the virus, and some of these things that were in place before the virus. So what I want to do just very briefly is, in my part of this opening, is to share a brief personal story, tell you a little bit of what I think we've learned just in the last few decades that relates to the theme of what I think is a heart of the heart of being spiritually, emotionally, intellectually well, and then where that's rooted for my tradition in Scripture, both in Hebrew Scriptures as well as in the teachings of Jesus. So all that very briefly, but the story I want to share is a story of a personal story, vulnerable story, one that relates to my own experience in this pandemic. I don't think it's in any way unique, but it's my story, so I'll share it right quick. When March 2020 came around, and we all know what happened that month, I had been a pastor for 32 years. I'd flourished in this sense of calling, and had you asked me, had Steve asked me, of the young generation, you occasionally find people saying, "What's your superpower?" Well, had that question been posed to me by my own superpower, particularly in my vocation, I would not have said administration. For we all have to do administration as pastors and leaders and rabbis and et cetera, but it's not my favorite. I would not necessarily have said pastoral care, because though I love pastoral care, I feel it's an extraordinary privilege to be presiding over a funeral, being somebody's bedside in the hospital, et cetera. I wouldn't call it a superpower. You can't say preaching, because nobody can say they're a superpower preacher without sounding egotistical. And who ever heard of a clergy person who is egotistical? That's surely couldn't be. Well, no, I think I would. I've always been, one of my self-conceptions is that a great, extraordinary gift that I just thought was a gift of genetics and a gift of God is that I sort of have an emotional equilibrium. I have never experienced extreme depression. I've led congregations without ever extraordinary anger. And when there's adulation, I seem to take it in stride. It's never been, I've always felt a sense of just a calmness generally in my own disposition. I felt like I was gifted to have because I've walked alongside folks who struggle emotionally. When the pandemic hit, I found myself separated from family, alone in an apartment on 59th, overlooking the morgue trucks that were parked in front of Mount Sinai West. Congregants died of COVID. Cousin was before very long in the stages of the pandemic. A cousin exactly my age was on a ventilator for a month, only to succumb to the disease and then to leave 5 children. I could go on, but I think all of you know, you have your own experience of this. And all of a sudden I was in a place emotionally that I had never been. And I experienced a sort of isolation that led me to a kind of despair and situational depression that I had never experienced before. And I relate that to the image of Jeremiah, a prophet of the Hebrew scriptures that we call the Old Testament. Jeremiah talked about and he warned the people of Israel about being in a parched place, that is being a shrub in the desert where there's no nourishment, no water. And the danger there is when you're disconnected from God and from others who seek to follow in God's ways. This image is repeated in the Psalm 1, in fact, and in other places in Scripture. And of course, the very beginning of the Hebrew Scriptures start with us being, as human beings, being placed in a garden with a deep sense of rootedness and nourishment and flowing streams, all those images. Being in a parched place is difficult. And I think what we learned from science just recently, in recent decades, in 2007, in fact, Stephen Cole was among his collaborators, was the first to publish a paper finding that healthy people with weak social connections, isolations, that those people have alterations in a set of key genes that govern the behavior of white blood cells. And white blood cells, as we all know, affect disease. And this research and the subsequent research that's gone on since 2007 show why isolated people, socially isolated folks, face higher risk of chronic inflammation and disease and earlier death. And since then, Cole has written a great deal and researched a lot about social disconnection and how it triggers 200 genes. And this is a phrase that might stick with you. It certainly has stuck with me. 200 genes that brew what he calls a molecular soup of death. All that relates from, the studies seem to show, a kind of social isolation. Now back to the Psalm. Psalm 1, very common, beautiful psalm. It begins by warning against those who stand or walk or sit in the seat of scoffers or mockers. This is an image of somebody who looks askance at others, who looks down on others. The wicked here are defined by those who are isolated, even by their own fault from others, because they look down and scoff at others who are in any ways not like them. And rather, blessed, the psalmist says, is the one who is deeply rooted, meditating in wisdom, Torah, the law, the stories, of course, of that we learn of God's liberation, etc. And blessed are those people because they'll be like the tree firmly rooted, without withering leaves and roots deeply in soil that is fed by a stream. So this conception that is I think deeply rooted in my own spiritual tradition teaches us the need of being socially connected in all the ways that we're just elaborated so beautifully, I think, relate to this. And one of the most famous passages of Jesus is the Sermon on the Mount, which begins with Jesus talking about how people, blessed are those who are poor, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who hunger, blessed are those, even in Luke's version, blessed are those who are hated. Now, we don't typically relate all those things together, but what holds common for all of these folks who are blessed, whether they mourn or whether they're hated or whether they're hungry, is that they know they need others. They're aware that they can't live independently. And that is, in one sense, leads them to the blessing of knowing they have to be connected, leads them energetically to be connected. I think we all share more in common with the natural world than we sometimes want to admit. We are very much like the trees of the forest. We have to have deep roots, inspiration from the sky, if you will. But the difference that we share maybe from a good deal of natural life is that we can choose where we plant our lives and how we plant our lives. And that is a calling on all of us, I think. And the great thing about our faith traditions is, I think, it is a natural thing for faith communities to find ways to connect people, bring them to help them to serve, as was described, give them opportunities to sing with their voices. All of these things are a part of our tradition. And they are part of how we become healthy human beings. I'll close with a famous teacher from the Greek tradition, Aristotle, who famously said, humans are political animals. And he didn't mean that we're Democrats or Republicans or that we vote or run for office. He means for us to flourish, we have to belong to the polis. We are part of community. We do not thrive as isolated individuals. So we know that from a tradition, we know it from science, and the onus is on us to try to help each other to be connected. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Reverend Stearman, and for the sharing of your personal story. And I can definitely resonate the challenge of being isolated for months in the beginning of the pandemic, living alone in my apartment in New York City. And I think a lot of people has experienced similar challenges. And because of this extreme isolation, that make us become more aware of the need of connection, to build connection, to build the bridges, and to nourish each other with the love and care. And thanks also for reminding us about the mind-body connection. And a lot of people actually forget about it. Cultivating wellness spiritually, mentally, and intelligently will give a positive feedback to our body and then increase our physical wellness as well. A lot of people in the modern world are not paying enough attention to this. And thank you so much for also sharing with us the way of cultivating well-being. Wellness is building connection and building communities. And thank you for that. So what about Father Bryant? Hi, Father Bryant. I'm curious about what you think, what cultivating wellness is in a world filled with so much suffering.
Well, I appreciate, number one, being part of this group. Venerable has a great deal of faith to invite an Irishman to come and speak shortly. That's almost not in our vocabulary. The reality for me is that the divine in the world prepares us. And I feel that very intimately in my relationship with Venerable as well as other members of the Buddhist community. We began our journey together in Rome. We did not go there on our own. We were invited by Pope Francis to come together and to meditate and reflect and communicate on suffering. That's how we began. And since that time, Our little group in New York has been meditating, the Catholic and the Buddhist community together. And we got so much involved with one another that we spent a beautiful time together in Taiwan, getting to know the lived experience of God's people, some of whom were Christian, others who were Buddhist. And I must say, I came away from that filled with an appreciation of God's love, of the divine that is in the world, which limits my sense of suffering. Because with Pope Francis, I believe that the essence of dealing with suffering is accompanying each other through that period. And as Reverend said just a few moments ago, not to be isolated, but to be together always. And the Holy Father talks about this, ignoring the marginalized, not in the sense of ignoring them, but ignoring the fact that some people would consider them marginalized. They must be a part of our life, and we must learn from them. One of the things I don't know if this is pride or humility, whatever, but I must say, Reverend, that I never come away from one of these experiences in dealing with our interreligious brothers and sisters without feeling better, without feeling stronger, without feeling more hopeful. And I think that has been, for me, the basic pain of the pandemic. In our diocese, now our diocese basically is the 10 southern counties of New York, 3 boroughs of Manhattan and 7 other counties in upper New York State. Although I get in trouble with people from Buffalo who think that I think that Dutchess is upstate. They have a problem with that. But the idea of we've lost 12 priests through COVID. That's the suffering part. The rejoicing part is that we had younger priests who came forward and said, we will go in isolation so that if someone becomes ill, we'll be able to go to them and accompany them in their physical suffering, that they might not experience the isolation that goes with this illness, this pandemic that's so great. And so it is 2 sides of the same coin that we see in this pandemic. Suffering, yes, but also hopefulness. The problem, one of the suffering issues that I see, and I have not talked about this, and maybe Doctor could help us with it, is the whole contradiction. Because unlike the humility we're seeking, Reverend, apparently there are some who are very proud of their predictions, very proud of their knowledge, which they have completely. And there's no doubt in their minds. Unfortunately, someone has the opposite opinion, and there's no doubt in their minds. And here we are, as clergy and as a people of God, saying, where are we going? Because we're getting contradictory information. And people have become isolated for that because, well, I don't feel that my friend loves me that much because he hasn't gone and become inoculated. There's something wrong with him. And we begin to divide more and more and more and more because we have no rich sense that everyone is trying to deal with this in the best way they can. And it requires humility, not on the part of the clergy alone, but on the part of everyone. And this is something I observed in Taiwan with the community, serving all, not thinking about, what brand, shall I say, and I don't say that disrespectfully, of Buddhism. They are people in need. Let's take care of them. And there has to be a greater humility in our society, because I think the greater pandemic is still with us, and it's going to be with us for a long time. And it's the pandemic of fear. Isolation is a horrific thing. And I know it myself as a priest, because, and Rabbi, I think you can identify this with the Passover, but we had Easter and Passover, and we were saying our prayers in isolation. Yes, we were being streamed, but we couldn't see the expressions of the people. We couldn't hug our families that are so much a part of our spiritual lives. And that was very bad. And unfortunately, I don't see that coming together just because we have rates that have gone down tremendously in terms of the number of people actually suffering ill health. And so the challenge, I think, for all of us, and I say this humbly, is to be one with each other, to be one with our people, and for our people to be one with each other. No margins. Everyone part of the world of faith, hope, and love.
Thank you so much, Father Brian, for the sharing. And it is so precious that you bring up this common value, common ground of Buddhist community and Christian communities. And I see that's about relieving sufferings. It's about delivering loving kindness to all, and about learning from each other as well. And some ways of cultivating wellness that I learned from you, including meditation, reflection, serving and caring for all, really everyone, and also unification of humanity, as you bring that to us. And thank you so much to share with us your wisdom. And now let me turn to Rabbi Wiedem. What do you think about cultivating wellness in a world filled with so much suffering?
Thank you. So what I started saying was I'm grateful for what you presented at the beginning, the opening where you spoke, where we saw this film of what Tzu-Chi does. And it's a good example of what all of us should be doing. I'm thankful for the previous speakers. I've learned much from each of them as to how they deal with it, cultivate wellness in the face of being alone, and to move on from there, to create something of worth. So I appreciate our coming together and talking about this. Wellness is really a state of mind. What shakes our sense of wellness and creates the anxieties and the that make us feel that the structure around us is crumbling. COVID or inflation, perhaps, or racism, or all of the bigotry that goes on can threaten our sense of meaning in our own lives. Why is all of this happening to us? Maybe we're alone in a vast sea of indifference. There's nothing in life that shows that perhaps our life has worth, that we're really a little island of tears in a vast sea of indifference. And that can trouble the mind as well as illness, but people who are sick and people who are dealing with difficulties, I think can fortify their strength, their sense of personal meaning, to believe that their lives have worth, that there's purpose to their lives. And that can be encouraged by prayer and faith. Helps us to renew our strengths and to recharge our own inner batteries, to believe that there's a purpose to my life, that amidst the pain that I suffer, amidst the difficulties that must be ours, Job wrote it, Job said it well, the author of Job said it well. So in the midst of all of it, to extract something of worth for ourselves, to believe that yet our life has purpose, has meaning. And prayer helps to reinforce that, recharging our batteries so that we can confront a new day. But our faith and our prayers must be fortified by action, and you've said it all. We must get out of ourselves, get ourselves involved in issues that can matter. I put on my Tzu-Chi mask that Freeman sent to me, and amidst it all, I get out and do something that takes me out of myself. Because if I am to believe that my life has worth, I must believe that all of the other people's lives have worth. And then how do we help them to get out of ourselves to do something? Join the school board, help in that, show that the schools matter, what we do on a school board matters, get involved in the community. That in midst of COVID, get ourselves vaccinated, wear our masks, and get out into the world and help those who need our help, or serve the issues that ought to be served by us. And then in so doing, we get out of our own depression, because we've left behind, we've transcended ourselves, and we've left behind our own depressions, our own problems concerning health, concerning pandemic, concerning all that we see around us. Yes, to be involved with those who are being assaulted today, and to stand with them. And look what goes on in our country with the Asian community today, increasing the violence in regard to that, or Black community, or anti-Semitism, all the other communities that are threatened. So what are we to do? Just say, I'm sorry it's happening? We are to involve ourselves in the lives of others. We're to find meaning for ourselves into intertwining ourselves with them, and to learn that love really is the joy of giving. As we give ourselves to a purpose that's higher than self, that's out of ourselves, so we find joy in our own lives, and we help to re-stimulate in ourselves, in our own mind, our own well-being. I know many people are sick with serious illnesses, yet have a sense of well-being, because in the midst of all of that, their faith and their prayers help to nourish their strength, and they don't sit around weeping and wailing in self-pity. They get ourselves involved in other causes. A young lady who writes letters to me about the community, when she herself is in the midst of physical difficulty. And that's how it has to be, to learn how to move past ourselves. And in so doing, we restore ourselves to something more significant. I've learned that maturity in life knows that joy is far from commonplace, that perhaps in life there is far more that we have to endure than to be enjoyed. And that may be the truth of life. But to know that we're not alone in a vast universe, but that we have found through our prayer that our lives can be meaningful if we move past ourselves, that one can find joy in what? In little things that one does for someone else, or an issue served, or in a job that one does well. Take joy in a job done well, or in love freely given. And then you take from all of it, I think, a sense of great personal satisfaction that should be born of an inner feeling now of work well done and of time well spent, and even perhaps of life well lived. And I think for me, that is the prescription of dealing with what we must. All challenge, all crisis has to be met not only with courage, but what helps to nourish our courage is our faith. And then that faith leads us to be more hopeful. In Hebrew, the word is v'haya, it shall be, it shall come to pass. Tomorrow can be a better day. But who is to make that? It is we must make it a better day. And how we seek to live our lives amidst all of our own challenges, amidst all of our health problems, amidst all of our own anxieties. We transcend ourselves and move past it, and thereby create for ourselves a better sense of well-being as we serve someone else in a special way. So that to me is the formula, and I see it is rooted in what I've heard all of you already have said. So I'm grateful to the previous speakers and thankful for the comments that I've heard. What your words have done is helped to strengthen me in what I've just told you. So thank you all. Thank you for allowing me to offer those thoughts.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you also for bringing up this notion of the sense of purpose, sense of living, I think, which was also just now touched upon by Reverend Stearman too. And indeed, current challenges are challenges of mind that threatening our sense of living, sense of personal meanings. And we can see from social movement right now, I'm not sure if you have heard about the Great Resignation. So many people are quitting their jobs and they're considering a different path of life. I think this is exactly what we're talking about here, a challenge of mind, a challenge of re-looking into what really means for living, for our own life. And thanks for sharing about the ways of your suggestion, your wisdom about cultivating wellness, including prayers, including involving ourselves with the life of others, building the purpose of life and higher sense of living more than just ourselves. And of course, building communities as well. And thanks so much for that. Finally, Dr. Liao, I would like to invite you to share with us what do you think are cultivating wellness among so much sufferings in the world right now?
Good afternoon, you all. First of all, it's a great pleasure and honor to join all the distinguished guests and Tzu-Chi members behind the scene and a lot of people on board joining this live Zoom. What you have all said basically sum up everything that I need to say, so I'm going to change it from a different perspective. Let's try to define wellness. Growing up in the British system of education, at my time, we looked for answers in the Encyclopedia Britannica or any of the things that we need to know, as opposed to the Google now. And we looked at the Webster dictionary for the definition of the word. So I'm going to read off like 250 definitions of wellness. Actually, it's only 30. So in the Webster dictionary, wellness means fitness, health, healthiness, robustness, soundness, wholeness, wholesomeness, fertile, shape, cleanliness, hygiene, hardiness, robustness, ruggedness, stamina, strength, toughness, vigor, vigorousness, vitality, freshness, activeness, agility, liveliness, welfare. So basically, my conclusion is wellness is both physical, mental, and spiritual. So it's a condition of being sound in body and mind. It's a state of being in good health. So putting the power of the mind to good use, and that's the mind of the heart. That would be my conclusion of a long list of definitions of wellness. The Avantasagga Sutra states that everything is created by the mind, and all things are formed by our consciousness. So in Buddhism, human mind is capable of manifesting the entire universe. It can transform and change all things in the world. So in order to develop and cultivate wellness, in Tzu-Chi teaching, there are 3 ways to do that. First, we have to realize as is the cause, so is the effect, the cause and effect phenomena. So when we face challenges of such magnitude, like COVID, weather changes, and things like that, these are all due to the karma from our past actions. SARS that happened almost 20, 15 years ago comes from people eating wild animals, people eating exotic things. And the COVID today, as a result of, from the medical standpoint, we develop all these superpower antibiotics, medications, and then they mutate, just like COVID has mutated from Delta to Omicron and to who knows what's next. So if you can gladly accept the challenges as our karmic retribution, we're able to transform our suffering to happiness. And we can also continue to be vigilant of our speech, our conduct, and bring purity to our body, speech, and mind. I think that's enlightened wellness on top of the wellness. Second, I think from the mental and the spiritual standpoint, spiritual practice is about training our mind, as many of our guest speakers mentioned about the state of mind. Being mindful of anything we do as a person in any way, shape, or form, I think it's a spiritual practice. Implemented on the right way, we can eliminate a lot of negative habitual tendencies and transcends the interpersonal conflicts between ourselves, our family, the society, and into being the well-being of our mind. And in Buddhism, we cultivate Buddhism. In other religions, we cultivate our own form of religious belief or non-religious belief, to actually use as a training ground to tame our minds and then fully carry out our responsibilities as a useful society member, the fundamental responsibilities, staying 6 foot distances, staying at home if you feel like there are symptoms, going to see doctors, self-quarantine, get the vaccination, the first, the second, the booster shot, train ourselves to become someone who can help and save others. Just like in Tzu-Chi and Venerable Master has said, we go out, we get engaged in ways of just picking up a phone call, call the loved ones, call friends that we haven't spoken to a long time, knock on the door, next door neighbors in your apartment, and just to say hello. People that we never even know that walk in the park, if you go in the park and say hello, give a smile to everybody. So this is the way to show our courtesy to others. I think that will be the 3 ways to cultivate wellness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liao, for sharing with us your definition of wellness, which is mental, physical, and spiritual. And also cultivating wellness means cultivating the power of mind and the power of heart, and being mindful for anything that we do and train ourselves to be able to help others. And helping others can be as simple as just call our friends and connect with others. Not really like big rocket science, but everyone can do in our everyday life. And really appreciate your sharing. So now we have talked about wellness and cultivating wellness among the sufferings. And through this rich discussion, we have already touched upon a lot of challenges, I think. And just wondering, another question that I have for all of you, and I'm going to post it as an open discussion so you can share anything that comes to your mind without me cueing you in any order. So the question is, what challenges to wellness have you seen emerged in the past year? Of course, some of this have already been touched upon within your community that hasn't been well addressed, and how has your organization worked to address the gap? So there are 2 questions together. Anything that you'd like to add on to your previous sharing about the challenges to wellness that hasn't been addressed, and what your organization is working towards addressing this gap?
If we could just before we go to that question, I was listening to Doctor and to Rabbi, and I was thinking of someone we just lost just a few weeks ago, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And if you ever saw pictures of Desmond Tutu, he was always smiling and always, reaching out to others, avoiding that isolation. And someone said to him, how can you smile in the midst of this apartheid? How can you? He says, one has to have an inner sense of humor. And basically what he is saying, this apartheid situation is so insane, I have to smile. And it's so inane. And I think that's what, in terms of our religious experience today, we have to begin to recognize that it is inane for us to be devastated by a virus that is not as great as the people that we serve. And we reach out and care for them. Now, specifically, I think most of us are approaching life in a similar way. We force ourselves, if we have any doubts in ourselves, to go out and to serve our communities. And I know that the synagogues and the masjid and the temples and the churches have done that, and they've done it together. And it's my prayer that that won't be forgotten, that what we did together at this time to relieve the sufferings of others, we should do at all times.
I'd add on to that, Father, what a first century sage by the name of Hillel, who said, if I'm not for myself, it will be for me, which means to secure one's own sense of well-being. While you're doing that, he continues to say, but if I'm only for myself, what am I?
Yes.
First century. And then he doesn't finish it with that. In other words, you have to be there, get out of yourself, to be there with others, with their needs, with the issues that are at hand. And he continues, and if not now, when? In other words, now is always the time to do it. Not to put it off. I have time to get involved. I have time to satisfy this. I have time to do that. The time is always now. Always now. Im lo achshav, it says in the Hebrew. If not now, when? We have to do it now. And I think that's what Tzu-Chi really does. I often say to Freeman Sue every time we talk, I said, you're doing God's work. Look what you're doing. You're there in the midst of everything that troubles people. Tsunami, you're there. Earthquake, you're there. Fires, you're there. And you don't come empty-handed. You come not merely with a prayer of well-being. You come to help them with the needs that are theirs. And I think that service is doing God's work. And I think we have to all be called to that kind of service. So in the midst of whatever it is that may plague us, and God knows we have many things that plague us all personally, we can't allow that in any way to paralyze us. If not now, when then? We have a purpose. If we believe that life has a purpose, then we have to go out and fulfill that purpose. To know, I think, that as people of faith, to believe perhaps that we've been commissioned with the task of being chief protagonists in this world. And what is our task? To take what it is, to push back all the walls of darkness that we find, pandemic, whatever it is. We're grateful for science, we're grateful, and to support it all, and in the process, to turn what is into what ought to be. That becomes a human task, and that gives purpose to our lives. And if we don't believe that, then there is no purpose in life. And if there's no purpose, then our lives count for very little. So it's supportive to gain a sense of wellness is to know that we have something important to do. And if we keep on working at it, then we can come into being. In regard to the second question, you're saying, listen, what are the problems that we face? We face not only pandemic, we face all of the problems that have to do with how we treat one another. Anti-Semitism. How about, I mentioned earlier, what's going on in California. My friends in California tell me what the Asian community is going through. Fearful of their lives. My friends say some can't even get out of the house, so fearful are they. And Black friends of mine say that. So the point is, we have to do something about all of that. And what do? So we've sought to create a faith partnership of many groups linked together, be in support of one another, so that no group feels alone, feels isolated. And those groups seek to support one another when one group is troubled. As Eddie Chung responded from the Chinese group that felt that they were under duress, so everybody else came to support. I think that's what we must be, supportive of one another. Bible talks about Moses, when Moses first discovered that other people were being brutalized, freedom. And the great verse is, and Moses went out to find his brothers. And I think that's what we all must be doing, to find our brothers and sisters, regardless of what their own particular prayer of faith may be, to know that in the last analysis, we're all members of one race, the human race, and we must act that way and shore up each other. And when as Hillel says, if not now, when then? Now is the time. And I thank Father for setting this thing off and getting me to remember the words of Hillel. My thoughts in regard to that. What else do we do in combating what we face? It was another sage of ours, 2,000 years ago, Rabbi Tarfon said, it's not in your power to cure all the ills in the world, but do not use that as an excuse to do nothing at all about them. So not out of concern what someone will say or think of us, but if we are to endure our own existence, if we're to live in this world at all, it ought to be in a world where other human beings will not needlessly suffer for want of any help that's in our power to give. And I think that has been the standard slogan of Tzu-Chi, and it certainly comes out of our community as well. We have to be there when it matters most. And now is the time. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just want to echo Father and Rabbi said, and then as what I just listened to they say it in this record. Our teacher, the Buddha, told us, and then there's no difference between the man or woman or what your country come from. We are all the same. We are all sentient beings, and then there's no differences. That's how we always pray, and then we are one, and then we can be one as in one another's. So I think as we from the conversation so far, and then I just remember Father was saying, and then love is the joy and giving, and then for our congregation, the Blia is also we practicing the Master Xing Yun told us that the principle for the Blia members is just practicing the four givings. We're giving the people joy and giving people hope, and then convenience and confidence. So in the Buddhism is like it's the same. And then we always focus on the current moment. There's no worry for us for the future, because if we cannot focus and then manage the current moment, and then we live at right now, this moment, and then there's no future for us. And then even though in Dr. Liao just mentioned about, in the Buddhism, we have the cause and condition, cause and effect, but that's just how we have to so be careful at the current moment, because this is the cost for the future effect. So for doing, if we mention about the challenge and then throughout this pandemic, and then I think it's about the outside the whole environment, because for the human beings, most of times we cannot stay alone, being alone, being well with ourselves, the inner self. That's how we would like to being together, get connected, and then can being together with the family and then maintain the good relationships. So I just saw the question in the chat too. It's talking about how we cannot, how we can avoid the bad influences for the relationship. So this is how, if we maintain and stay as you are not focusing in yourself, and then your thoughts, your minds, you are practicing the giving, and then you will be enjoying, the giving out, what you have, you can support, and then to other people, to other beings. It's not just the sentient beings. It's not just the human beings. It's all the sentient beings, and then including all those, the animals surrounding us, sea creatures, the earth creatures, it's every beings, every sentient beings. We can be nice, do all the good things with them. So if we from the beginning, Dr. Liao mentioned about probably, the whole virus, how it came from, how it come out. If we can be all being nicely and treated, each other, and with the sentient beings too, and then probably, they won't have this whole pandemic things came out. So, but back to the what I want to say. All the faith, all the faith leader, our faith teachers, God and Buddha, and then Allah, and then all told us the same things. There's no differences between one another, and then we are all the one, and then we all need to be respectfully, and then to each other, because we are the same, and no need to focus on you because when everyone is good and then we are good, you are the good. And then, so this is what I just want to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to echo Rabbi Wiedem and Venerable Masters, actually what the challenges which are bigger now is the practice of mindfulness. Before the COVID, we are always concerned of the course of our own lives, facing illness, aging, death, as Master mentioned, the four dukkha, and not learning to let go things. These are the working of karmas if we believe in there is a past and the future and the next life. Our Dharma Master Zhen Yan, in his aphorism, mentioned that nothing in this world truly belongs to us, not even our bodies. We have the rights to use them, but we don't have the ownership over them. So when we face age and illness and kids learning, going away, or our dear friends pass away because of pandemic or ill and diseases, we just have to let go. We can't worry about the past, which is past. We can't worry about the future because the future might never come. Life is very impermanent. So like Rabbi Wiedem said a few times, the present is most important thing. The best present that we have is presence, just to add to other comment. Thank you.
I think I saw one of the questions in the chat, and it says, what have the community done that we could do better? And I think, I look around, with all due respect to everyone I can see, we are of a certain age. And we have to prepare for the future by challenging our young people to recognize the mistakes we made, that we don't want them to repeat, that they are to reach out to one another. And you might say, well, you know, Rabbi is kind of old, he's got white hair and I have none. The funny thing is about young people, they listen to their grandparents more than their parents. So perhaps age gives us an advantage to share with our young people the joy of living our life on earth, the joy of reaching out to one another, the joy of making other people's lives truly significant in our consciousness.
You know, when I was a young guy, young fella, father, I used to think I knew everything because I knew. I just had finished theological school, and boy, did I know. I knew more than the teachers. I knew everything. The older I get, the more I see how much I don't know. With every year, I find out I know less and less. And even with that, how do we become influential in the lives of kids who tell me they know everything, as I knew everything? And I think the only way you do it is not through words, because words fall short, is through examples we set.
Yes.
They have to learn from us to what we do. The important word in all of this is the doing of it. And the doing of it becomes critical for us. The talking of it does not do much, but the doing of it ultimately says it all. And I think we have to be involved in knowing that we're all doers, and we have to get others to be doers, and to not allow things to stand in our way, whatever they are, COVID or whatever it is. We have to be serving the human condition. And that becomes a purpose in our lives. And perhaps maybe then they will emulate what we do.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Reverend Desmond, do you have anything to add?
I'll close at least my part with a story I was reminded of in this conversation that I heard yesterday, coming from the Southern Baptist tradition, where an older gentleman says to his wife one Saturday, he says, you know, if we wake up tomorrow and all the papers say that the atheists are absolutely right, you know what we're going to do on Sunday morning? We're going to get in our car and we're going to go to church like we always do, because that's where we meet God. And it was, you know, it's a funny little story, but it's about the horizontal dimension of our communities of faith. That's where we really, it's about all that we've been talking about. We need each other, and to the challenge of our current era, I think at a time when that is more true than ever, we find people in silos, isolated in their little social media streams, and not willing to take the kind of steps that we're really talking to. But I want to say the final thing, I'm really glad to hear this word on my birthday, that people are going to listen to folks with white hair, maybe eventually.
Or no hair.
Or no hair, yeah, exactly. Right. Anyway, thank you. It's great to be with you. I appreciate this invitation.
I want to wish Reverend a happy birthday.
Thank you.
And grateful that every day is birthday, but today is the official birthday. We have to be blessed every day with a sense of birthday, knowing that it's another day to live and to perform and to do what we should, but to celebrate your birthday today. But you remind me of a story. If we have time just to tell a story, it comes out of a book that I read by Elliot Paul. It's called Life and Death of a Spanish Town. And he tells the story of a strapping young Spaniard who dreams of someday building a castle for himself and his old poor mother to live in. And he dreams, as he would lay at the roadside, dreaming dreams, he would buy her gowns of Latin and lace, and hire serfs and vassals to do her bidding and to create her comfort. And every day as he lay under the tree at the roadside, dreaming this wonderful dream, he would see his poor hunchbacked mother picking out the fruits and vegetables from the town garden, putting it on a load on her shoulder, and toiling up the hill with her load to the marketplace. And every day as he watched the sight of his poor hunchbacked mother, so touched his heart that this sense of youth, that tears would roll down his suntanned cheeks, and he would roll over on the opposite side and look away. And the author says there are too many such sensitive people like that in the world. Tears without deeds, weeping but no work has never lightened anyone's burden or relieved anyone's pain. And we have to come to that realization again, that ultimately it's in our hands not to be such sensitive people who really come with our prayers and our thoughts, but to be there to actively work on behalf of an issue that we think to be important, and more than the issue, people that are most important, and to give our service to them, and then to know then in the doing of it, then we relieve ourselves perhaps of some of our own personal anxiety. We find a sense of satisfaction in what we do with our lives, what we do with our families, we do with the people that we care for, and then reach past our own people to touch other people's lives with what we can do. So thank you, Reverend, for reminding me of the Elliot Paul story. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's sharing. It is truly a memorable 60 minutes, actually more than 60 minutes, 75 minutes, and packed with loving kindness and so much food for thought. And the true challenges, as I can hear from all of you, is beyond the observable phenomena that we can see, but goes deeper to how we treat each other. and goes beyond ourselves to the whole environment and goes to how to practice mindfulness as well. And all of us, we have to do something with it, about it. And now is the time. And if not now, when? And not just now, but we need to help others, all sentient beings, with loving kindness all times. And that's my takeaway. I really appreciate, I believe everyone today and also people who are watching the recording are so grateful for all our distinguished guests for the sharing of your wisdom. Thank you so much also that you addressed the questions from the audience too. And I just wish we have more time together. Next time, I'm hoping to see you again. And to our wonderful audience, I hope you can take the wisdom with you and go make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. Thank you so much for being here today. So before we close, finally, I'd like to thank the organizers who made this event possible, including Diana Kwok, Yang Li, Steve Chu, Peggy Shen, KD Chao, Freeman Su, Suyin Yan, Annie Chu, and also our medium team, Fan Ting, Nancy Wei, Ping Hao, Anik as well. Thank you so much for all your efforts, which make this event possible. And also I'd like to let you know that if you want to know more about us, about Tzu-Chi Foundations, we welcome you to visit our New York City location in Tzu-Chi Center at the Upper East Side in 229 East 60th Street. We look forward to see you there. And yeah, finally, I hope you enjoyed the event. If you have any additional follow-up questions to our speakers, feel free to send it over to our email address and we will forward it to our guests and get back to you. So finally, my name is Joanna, Jen, and happy World Interfaith Harmony Week. Thank you so much.
And we want to thank you as a moderator today.
Yes, indeed.
A wonderful, wonderful session. We're grateful to you. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Wiedem. Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Father Brian. Thank you,
Joanna.
Reverend Stearman. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Liao as well. Have a wonderful day.